Hello everyone and welcome to my channel Y&R Trends. I hope everyone is having a wonderful day. Before we begin, please hit the subscribe button and give this video a thumbs up. Mitch Bacall, the endearing but mysterious man who had wandered into Genoa City under the pretense of being a visiting consultant for Chancellor Winters, had been haunting Sharon Rosales for weeks. Sharon was the only person in town who didn't appear to believe his narrative. Mitch never made sense for some reason. Her intuition was troubled by his gaze, his reluctance whenever someone brought up Los Angeles, and the way he frequently showed up in unexpected locations. Sharon had already encountered dishonest people. She had gazed into the eyes of men who grinned but concealed something hideous behind their courteous facades. Among them was Mitch. And what she would ultimately discover would completely upend Genoa City. It began rather casually. Sharon was attempting to find calm while still grieving Noah's terrible absence and feeling guilty for placing the blame on his ex-girlfriend. In an effort to provide herself and others with the means of healing, she had reopened Crimson Light's private event space for a neighborhood support group. Mitch offered to assist. That was the first red flag. Why would a man she hardly knew suddenly show interest in her small-town cafe projects when he claimed to be overburdened with corporate consulting work? Sharon nevertheless permitted it, reasoning that she shouldn't let her paranoia control her decisions. But every time he moved behind the counter, she felt her skin tingle. Sharon was organizing old pictures of Faith and Noah in a memory box one afternoon when she noticed Mitch standing outside and observing her through the glass door. He was not grinning. His demeanor was aloof and eerie, as though the pictures she carried concealed a secret he was all too familiar with. He swiftly turned and left when she raised her head and met his stare. Something inside her changed at that same moment. Sharon made the decision to stop doubting herself and begin her investigation. Softly, discreetly, in her traditional delicate manner, she started by asking questions. She casually asked Devin and Lily at Society how long they had known Mitch. Devin acknowledged that he had just been working with him for a month and that, while pleased by his astute tactics, he was ignorant of his personal history. Lily, who was more perceptive, admitted that Mitch had withheld information about his family, stating simply that his past was complicated. Sharon found resonance in that statement. In her view, complicated frequently meant dangerous. Sharon checked over the receipts from a charity event Mitch had assisted in planning back at Crimson Lights. He had used a California billing address associated with Bacall Industries, a business she was unfamiliar with. Nothing appeared when she searched for the name, at least not under official corporate records. Her instincts began to shout more loudly at that point. Mitch was not the person he claimed to be. As she probed further, she contacted an old acquaintance in Los Angeles, Mariah Klein, an investigative journalist who owed her a favor from her outreach work in therapy. She was asked by Sharon to research Mitch Bacall and anything associated with him. 2 days later, Mariah returned the call with the terrifying news that there is no record of a Mitch Bacall existing before 2020. The man seemed to emerge out of nowhere, but that wasn't the most concerning aspect. The reporter also discovered an old news article on Michael Darnell, a well-known corporate spy and con artist who disappeared years ago after being connected to several identity fraud cases involving IT and pharmaceutical companies. Sharon's heart stopped when she saw the picture of Mitch that was included with the story. The same eyes, the same friendly grin. In reality, Mitch Bacall was Michael Darnell, a burglar with a history of breaking into businesses, stealing confidential information, and disappearing before anybody knew what had happened. Everything clicked all of a sudden. His relationships with Chancellor Winters, his use of Phyllis to gain access to Jabot executives, and his intimacy with both Victor and Sharon were all components of a bigger scam. Sharon, however, was not content to simply know. She required evidence. She suspected that whatever Mitch was pursuing now had something to do with Noah, so she had to expose him before he damaged anyone else. Her blood ran cold at the thought. A few weeks prior, she recalled Mitch asking strangely intimate questions about Noah's time in London, his photography company, and the unidentified investor who had assisted him in opening his art gallery there. At the time, Sharon had written it off as friendly inquiry. She now understood that Mitch had been searching for something that was very important to her son. Sharon was determined to face Mitch, but she would do it her way, discreetly and cunningly. She told him she wanted to talk to him about an impending community initiative and invited him to a private meeting at Crimson Lights after hours. Mitch arrived on schedule, sporting the same self-assured grin that used to disarm her but now made her feel sick to her stomach. Sharon maintained a stern yet friendly tone as they sat down. She started off by saying, "You've been quite a mystery since coming to Genoa City, and I believe it's time for you to reveal your true identity to me." Mitch's eyes quickly twitched, but Sharon could tell she had touched a nerve. Leaning back in his chair, he laughed. She said without laughing, "Sharon, you sound like you've been reading too many spy novels." Rather, she moved the old Los Angeles Times piece across the table in a printed form. His grin froze. "Michael Darnell," she muttered. "Isn't that you?" Mitch was silent for a long, gloomy moment. The espresso machine behind the bar was the only sound. His facade cracked as he sighed and leaned forward. He remarked softly, almost sympathetically, "You have no idea what you've gotten yourself into." Sharon, however, remained unflinching. "You're correct," she answered. "However, I will not allow you to harm those who are important to me. Not Devin, not my son, not anybody else." Mitch quickly got to his feet and raised his voice. "Sharon, you don't get it. This isn't about money, it's about survival," he said quickly, his composure eroding. "They are observing me. Since Los Angeles they have been observing." Sharon's heart pounded, caught between interest and horror. "If I don't deliver what they want, I'm as good as dead." "Who are they?" she insisted. The front door opened before he could respond. After following his instincts regarding Sharon's late-night rendezvous, Nick Newman entered. "Is everything going well here?" he asked, casting a suspicious glance at Mitch. Sharon could see the stress emanating from Mitch as he faked a grin and muttered something about a misunderstanding. Mitch was already retreating towards the door when she softly reminded Nick to maintain his composure. With a shaky voice he replied, "You shouldn't have done this." Then he ran out into the night saying, "You've just made yourself a target." Nick asked Sharon to give Chance a call right away, but she declined. "Not yet," she replied. Despite Nick's objections, she persisted in her investigation, following Mitch's movements throughout the previous few weeks. "I need to know who's pulling his strings." Even she was astonished to learn that Mitch had communicated with Victor Newman. In an apparent attempt to outwit his competitors, Victor had recruited Mitch to town under the guise of corporate consultancy, but in reality, he had paid him to examine Chancellor Winter's private data. However, Victor was unaware of Mitch's criminal history or his dual identities. Sharon realized the stakes were much higher than she had anticipated when she put that together. Mitch was no longer just a con artist. He was now a man fleeing dangerous individuals, and his most recent hiding spot was Genoa City. Nevertheless, Sharon was unable to ignore the human aspect of Mitch's eyes, the sorrow, the fear, the desperation. A part of her, the sympathetic therapist who had worked with lost souls for years, wished he could be saved. However, her devotion to her loved ones clashed with that compassion. She made the decision to put an end to this permanently. She set up one last meeting, with Chance Chancellor in attendance. Mitch froze at the sight of the detective when he got there, assuming Sharon was by herself. He said, "You set me up." Sharon's face relaxed. "No, Mitch. The instant you deceived everyone who trusted you, you set yourself up." Chance stepped forward, displaying his badge. Mitch did not object when he was told, "Michael Darnell, you are under arrest for multiple counts of identity fraud, corporate espionage, and obstruction of justice." He just stared at Sharon, a pain she couldn't quite detect in his eyes. He responded cryptically, "You think you've saved them. However, you are unaware of what is about to happen. You simply unlocked the incorrect door." Long after Mitch was removed, those remarks continued to torment Sharon. A few days later, Chance told her that someone had broken Mitch out during a prisoner transfer. Sharon's biggest dread was verified by that terrifying news. Mitch hadn't been lying about being observed. Whoever they were, whoever was behind him was still out there. They were now aware that their operative had been revealed by Sharon Rosales. Genoa City was affected in the aftermath. When Victor found out that Sharon had discovered the truth before him, he became enraged. Sharon refused to apologize when he insisted on knowing why she hadn't approached him first. "Victor, you brought a criminal into this town," she said. "And I wasn't about to let him destroy any more lives." Phyllis, on the other hand, was privately fascinated because she had a gut feeling that Mitch's disappearance was related to something more significant, possibly the AI software she had lately taken from Kane Ashby. The strands were beginning to intertwine, creating a more extensive fabric of dishonesty. One night when Sharon was alone herself at Crimson Lights, she mentally rehearsed what she had spoken to Mitch. "You just opened the wrong door," was his final caution, and it kept repeating in her mind. Which door? What was he trying to say? Then she discovered it. A tiny flash drive he had concealed in her purse prior to his apprehension. She plugged it into her laptop, shaking. Encrypted files with the letters NB appeared. Project Resurrection. Her breath caught. Note: Noah Bacall? Is it possible? Was Mitch actually aware of her son's enigmatic disappearance? Sharon realized this was far from over when the cafe lights flickered and thunder boomed outside. Mitch's exposure had just shown the surface of a much larger plot. It had not eliminated the threat. Now Sharon was more than just a coffee shop owner and a bereaved mother. She was the only thing separating the facts they were desperate to conceal from a strong covert network. The question wasn't whether Sharon could handle the truth. Rather, it was the start of a new nightmare that would drag her and everyone she loved into a struggle for survival, truth, and atonement in the darkest corners of Genoa City. The question was whether Sharon Rosales could be handled by the truth. The glare from her laptop screen lit up the dimly lit cafe, making it difficult for Sharon Rosales to breathe. Mitch had slipped a flash drive into her backpack, and it was sitting in the USB connector with a slight pulse, like if it were alive. Just the word, Project Resurrection, made her skin crawl. When she clicked on the file folder once more, she was confronted with encrypted codes and odd letter and number combinations that she was unable to understand. However, Sharon's heart froze when she noticed a file with the simple title Noah. Her hand shuddered as the cursor passed over it. She was unable to open it for a considerable amount of time. What if her worst worries came true? What if it turned out that Noah, her son, had been abducted rather than simply disappeared? She inhaled deeply before clicking. The package included a number of grainy, timestamp surveillance images from several sites throughout Europe, including Prague, London, and Venice. Noah seemed slimmer and more aloof in every picture, frequently walking next to strangers Sharon didn't know. However, one figure caught our attention. Auburn-haired woman was constantly observing him from the background. Sharon squinted her eyes. She was only named as SB in the photo's metadata, and then it dawned on her. Bacall Sienna. It was the same Sienna who had traveled to Genoa City with Mitch while posing as his sister. Her heartbeat accelerated. It wasn't by chance that Mitch had arrived in Genoa City. Sienna was unaware of the deeper connection he and she shared with Noah. Perhaps Mitch's admonition was a hint rather than a threat. "You just opened the wrong door." Perhaps he was implying that she had set off a more significant event involving her own family by discovering him. Sharon went directly to Chance Chancellor's office the following morning. With a steady but terrified voice, she gave him the flash drive. "You must see this." Chance put the disc in, and the two of them stared as the pictures flickered on his display. "It's about Mitch and my son," Chance remarked somberly. "These aren't just random sightings. Noah was being followed by someone. And not just casually, they were following him for months." After clicking through a few files, he came to a file called R Phase 1, which contained coded diagrams, potential schematics, and encrypted notes mentioning neural mapping, genetic synchronization, and subject activation. All of this was incomprehensible, with the exception of one recurrent reference, Project Resurrection. "What on earth is this?" Sharon muttered. With a wrinkled brow, Chance leaned back. "This appears to be a biotech experiment of some sort. Mitch wasn't simply stealing company information if I had to assume. He was gathering genetic profiles, possibly even focusing on certain families." "Families?" Sharon said it again, her voice breaking. "Do you believe that Noah participated in any of these experiments?" Chance paused. "I believe Mitch was collecting information for a prominent person. Someone who required a subject like Noah. Young, smart, imaginative, and connected to powerful families. This might extend far beyond identity theft." Sharon felt her stomach turn. Then we must locate Sienna. Isn't she still in town? She was, Chance remarked somberly. Until last night. After leaving her hotel, she disappeared. Sharon went into a tailspin after learning that. The fragments were beginning to come together to create a terrifying image. In addition to being co-conspirators, Mitch and Sienna were members of a network that exploited human lives as pawns in a darker scheme. But Noah, why? Why her son? Sharon made the decision to go see Victor Newman because she was determined to find out. He was the one with the means to find someone like Sienna. Victor was reading a report from one of his detectives in his office when she got to Newman Enterprises. Sharon, he said in a chilly voice, I've heard about your interaction with Mitch Bacall. What a scandal. Sharon firmly stated, this isn't about a scandal. It concerns Noah. Victor's face became stern. Go ahead. She gave him a copy of the flash drive's pictures. Mitch was posing as someone else. Michael Darnell is his real name, and he participated in a project known as Project Resurrection. Noah has been photographed all throughout Europe. He was being followed by someone, perhaps making use of him. Victor silently examined the pictures. After a long moment, he got up and went to the window to gaze out at the city below. At last he said, I know that name. Resurrection Project. Sharon's eyes got bigger. You what? Victor took his time explaining. It was a covert biotech initiative. Luminera Labs and Newman Biotech collaborated years ago. They were attempting to resurrect injured tissue by reversing cellular deterioration through genetic restoration. A data leak led to the project's cancellation. However, if Mitch had been involved, with a hint of terror in her voice, Sharon concluded for him, then someone revived it. And my son was used. With an unreadable expression, Victor turned to face her. If Noah became involved in this, it was due to his overconfidence. But pay close attention to what I have to say, Sharon. The person responsible for this doesn't leave any unanswered questions. You're in danger if they find out you viewed that info. I refuse to give up, she declared angrily. Not until I find out. Although Victor respected her bravery, he advised her to avoid it. Sharon didn't pay attention. She went back to Crimson Lights that evening and read through all of Noah's correspondence, including old voicemails, postcards, and emails before he vanished. She was drawn to one message. It was from 3 months before to his disappearance. Warm but preoccupied, Noah said, Hey Mom. I met a wonderful person. She claims to be able to help me receive attention for my work. Sienna is her name. I believe you would like her. Sharon froze. Noah had known Sienna Bacall before to Mitch's arrival in Genoa City. This had been planned from the beginning. They hadn't merely happened to cross paths. Sharon met with Nick the following day and told him everything. Nick's defensive tendencies erupted right away. We'll track down Sienna if she was abusing Noah. He summoned Adam, who continued to have contacts in the underworld, and the brothers forged an improbable alliance. I'll make sure of it. Adam was able to identify a recent financial transaction connected to Sienna's alias in a matter of hours. She had bought a train ticket to Chicago. Sharon insisted on accompanying Nick to confront her, defying Chance's caution. Sharon's heart was racing when they got to the hotel where Sienna was hiding. When she opened the suite door, Sienna was seated at a desk with a laptop and open files all around. She didn't even appear shocked to see them. Calmly, Sienna continued, I was wondering how long it would take you to find me. Where is my son? With a shaky voice, Sharon demanded. With a groan, Sienna shut off her laptop. Alive, she said plainly. For the time being. Nick sprang forward, but Sharon stopped him. For now, what do you mean? Sienna's tone was icy distant as her gaze darted to the window. Noah was picked because of his brain patterns and inventiveness. Project Resurrection was about reproduction as much as healing. The job assigned to Mitch and me was to identify people who had specific cognitive signatures. Among them was Noah. Replication. Horrified, Sharon repeated. You mean cloning? Sienna grinned. Not precisely. Consider digital resurrection, including consciousness transfer and memory mapping. They were constructing something much more sophisticated. Noah also offered to help. He believed he was contributing to the development of technology that would preserve creativity, art, and emotion. However, they took advantage of him. It is intolerable to witness Summer Newman's grief in the meantime. With sorrow and rage in her eyes, she approaches her mother at the Grand Phoenix. "Mom, how could you? How could you assist Victor in destroying the business where I've put so much effort into creating my own?" Phyllis begs her daughter to comprehend that she was merely attempting to reclaim authority and respect. Summer, however, is unable to hear it. She informs her mother that she will no longer support her schemes. "Every bridge you have ever constructed has been destroyed by fire." Summer's remarks wounded worse than any corporate treachery could. "Don't expect me to be the one who rebuilds it for you this time." Phyllis realizes for the first time that she may have lost everything, including her daughter's affection, her work, and her allies. Victor, on the other hand, thinks he has triumphed. However, his kingdom is never as secure as he believes. Nikki is getting more uncomfortable every day. She is sick of his never-ending campaigns and brutal methods, and this most recent action, particularly the use of their grandson as a pawn, disgusts her. "You've turned our family into a weapon," Nikki accuses Victor in one of the scariest exchanges in recent memory. Victor brushes off her warning, but a glimmer of worry appears in his eyes. "And one day that weapon is going to turn on you." Nikki may also be correct. Almost immediately, Noah starts to feel the pressure. Even with Victor's support, Chabot is not trusted by his staff. There are divisions even within the Newman family, and the Abbotts treat him like an intruder. Nick openly challenges the morality of placing Noah in control of an enemy company, while Victoria feels that Victor has erred. Adam smirks and says, "Dad's finally managed to alienate everyone, even the grandkids, enjoying the mayhem for once." Phyllis finds herself in a tight spot and knows that her only option is to exact retribution. She accesses her laptop by herself in her suite and retrieves encrypted files from Kane's pilfered AI system. Victor is unaware that she kept something there. The code has a backdoor, a weakness that only she can take advantage of. She will grant Victor a war if he desires one. She'll attack him with his own weapon. Phyllis's idea to flip the roles could have unexpected repercussions in the upcoming weeks. There are rumors that she may side with Adam because they are both outsiders in Victor's world.